Hi everyone, I'm Justin from Poodle, and I'm going to give the same presentation that I gave a few days ago at the Moodle Moot in Suzhou, China. And I'm talking today about Moodle with AI for language teaching. And I'll be specifically talking about plugins for Moodle. So the first question that we need to ask ourselves is, why AI? Because even though AI is exciting, and for some of us it's fun and something that's inspirational, for other people it's scary or it's associated with students cheating. And we need to look at exactly why we want to use AI and how it can help. So I want to start by talking about three problems that I've encountered in my own time as a language learner and as a language teacher, and talk about how AI can help us solve those problems. And I'll discuss the plugins that I will introduce with reference to some of those problems. So let's go and have a look at those. So problem one, from my own experience, is when I was studying Russian at university, and that was in the south of New Zealand, a university called Otago. And at that time, there really wasn't anybody to practice Russian with. We had a tutor or several tutors who we could speak with perhaps once a week. But for the most part, it was a exercise in translating and reading, and to some extent listening, but speaking was particularly difficult. And that's a problem that AI can help us with, because it can provide us with speaking practice and speaking partners to some extent. Now, after I graduated from university, I wanted to go to Russia to actually become able to speak Russian. And in order to do that, I went to Japan and thought I'd work there for a year and save some money so that I could go on to Russia. And I worked in a nice language laboratory, which was very high tech, and it was in a high school. And one of the problems that it had was that although the hardware was very good, the software was very basic and it was stateless, so it didn't save the students' performance. They could see, in practice, but the teacher couldn't really see what the students had done. And when the students returned the following week, everything was just as it had been. There was no record of their previous attempts on the various activities. So I decided at that point to try something else, and I installed Moodle in a server in the language lab, and we used Moodle activities with the hardware that was in the language lab, and that was the very first version of Poodle. And we could do things like giving feedback to students on automatic feedback on gap fill activities, or if the students recorded some audio, I could review it, give feedback, and the students could get their audio feedback. So that was really quite good, but one of the things I noticed was that the instant feedback they got from filling in the gaps was very motivational, and they'd continue going even after the bell to try and get all green ticks on their various fill in the gaps activities. But the same reaction from the students wasn't there when they got the feedback 3 or 4 days later that I'd spent quite a long time preparing, when I'd give them audio feedback in response to their audio submissions. And that instant feedback is something that AI can help us with. I will say that she spends a lot of time grading, because she's also a teacher, grading junior high school students, marking their writing assignments or various things. She doesn't really have time to build activities. She's a junior high school teacher. They generally have to work from the textbook because they haven't got the time to create Moodle activities. And this is again a problem that AI can help us with, because it can prepare activities very well, and it can also help with the grading. It can give that very difficult thing to do, which is feedback on the students' writing, correcting their grammar. It's quite time consuming and quite difficult. It can do that much more easily than a human can, and it's a lot faster. Those are some of the problems that AI can help us with. So I want to go on now and talk about some of the plugins that are available for teaching languages, and it's just a sample of them. There's a lot more than I can possibly introduce here. Okay, so let's look at those plugins. So the first one that I want to introduce is a plugin for the HTML editor, the Moodle HTML editor. The default one is called TinyMCE, and it has a little icon with a little starry icon to indicate AI that can generate text and it can generate images. So the generate text feature is what I want to talk about now. So you just expand the icon on the toolbar, you choose generate text. That's Chinese for generate text. and then you'll get a little area like this. On the left-hand side, you can enter your prompt, which is what you will use to tell the AI what to produce, and on the right-hand side, we'll get our response. So in this example, I've asked the AI to give us a 100-word passage which has examples of the past tense forms of the words run, sleep, sit, and eat. In this case, I didn't actually write that Chinese. I used Google Translate to make it, which is another form of AI, but that's just because I don't speak Chinese and we were doing this presentation in China. When we are happy with our prompt, we'll press the blue button to generate the text, and that will spin for a short time, and then AI will return a nice passage of text for us. And in this case, it's done quite a good job. It's actually about 100 words, and it has given us past tense forms of all of those words that we asked for. Run, ran, sleep, slept, sit, sat, eat, and ate. Well, why is that good? Well, primarily it saves us time. So it would take a long time for a non-native speaker to create a passage like that. And also non-native speakers, often they're not clear if they've made a mistake or if they haven't made a mistake. So it gives them a lot of confidence. There are a lot of things that are, even native speakers find a bit of difficulty telling you, deciding if it's the right or the wrong form of a sentence or a word, and AI takes away a lot of those anxiety points. We can have confidence that the text that is produced is at least grammatically correct, which is the point that the text has no mistakes. Also, the text is original, so this can be used in an assessment. It can be used in an entrance examination, and you can be confident that the students have not seen this text before. And also the text is not under copyright, so if you were to publish it or print it, you're safe. The next plugin that I want to talk about is the TinyMC Generate Image plugin, and this is available from the same location as the Generate Text. It's there on the toolbar, and when we select that, we get a very similar looking dialog. On the left hand side we enter our prompt. There are some other image related parameters, and then on the right hand side we're going to get our picture. Now in this case I wanted to generate a picture that would give 4 options for a multi-choice question, so a correct answer and 3 incorrect answers. We call those distractors. And the question I'm posing is, which picture best represents the sentence, the boy has a second-hand instrument. And so I've asked the AI to produce, in the prompt there you can see I've asked the AI to produce an image with A, B, C and D images, and the images illustrate various things. I won't try and translate that Chinese text there, but when I show you the image that was generated, I think you'll see what those were. So A is a boy with a new instrument, B is a boy with a second-hand instrument, which is the correct answer, and then C is a boy with a glove, which might confuse some students who are asking about second-hand, and then the fourth answer, D, is a boy with a fork. So again, the AI has done quite a good job of creating those pictures, and it's the kind of thing that when you're creating a listening activity, it takes a long time to find the correct pictures. Often you'll skip the pictures, maybe you'll just pull out your pen and draw them by hand, but AI can do this very nicely. And in this case, we've done it in one shot, so we've asked it to give us 4 variations of the same boy, so that's made the images quite consistent. Okay, the next plugin I want to talk about is a plugin called AI Text, and it's a question type. So it goes, when you create a quiz, you'll be able to create an AI text question in the quiz. And I'll first have a look at what the question looks like from a student's perspective when we're doing it, and then we'll go and look at how it's made up. So in this case, the question that's been given to the student is, in English, explain how to make a sandwich. Your answer should be about 25 words long. So it's very much like an essay question in appearance to the student. Where the AI comes in is, of course, when the student has submitted their response, how we deal with that. We're going to grade it and we're going to give them feedback automatically. So a non-native speaker might answer this question like this. You should putting the butter all over a bread, 2 breads, then between those breads you putting the cheese and a little vegetable and maybe chicken, then you got a sandwich. So it's comprehensible, but there's lots of grammatical mistakes there, and let's see how
what happens when we submit that. So it's a question and a quiz, so it'll be submitted in the same way that other quiz questions are in the Moodle environment. You'll first have a little confirmation screen and then the final confirmation. And after that, the results will come back. So in this case, it's given us nice feedback because it's actually corrected our grammar and told us where was incorrect and how it was incorrect. It's given us corrected versions of our response, and it's given us a grade. In this case, the grade is not a great grade. It's given us -2 out of 1. So there's a problem with that grade. And we'll have a look and see how we can fix that shortly. In terms of making an AI text question, it appears just as a normal question does in the left-hand side there in the list of questions. It's AI text, but the real guts of it is here because at the top here we have the actual question that the student will see, and then beneath that we have the AI prompt, and that's where we tell the AI how to respond to the student. So in this case we've said explain if there is anything wrong with the grammar and spelling in the text, and your explanation should be in Chinese Mandarin. So that's how we were able to get the feedback that we saw in the green box earlier for the student. And then beneath it we have the mark scheme, and the mark scheme is deduct a point from the total score for each grammar or spelling mistake. So in this case we've got -2, so it's probably subtracted a point from 0 and ended up with -2. So we would, in this location, we'd actually correct these instructions that we've given the AI for the grading. Okay, I'll show you a little bit more about that shortly. But so why is all that good? Well, this question gives us immediate feedback for the student. The teacher doesn't need to grade it because it's already graded, and it's very flexible. It doesn't even need to be specifically for language learning. It could be for describing pictures or circuit boards or anything like that. The Moodle contribution to this plugin, because it's open source, it's actually free too, the AI text question, is a kind of a way of testing those responses. So in that previous example, we had the situation where the score that we got was erroneous. We wanted to make we should improve the prompt that we give for the marking. So this response tester makes it a bit easier to do that because we can simply type in a sample response or multiple sample responses and evaluate immediately how the AI will grade and give feedback to that response, rather than go through, first of all create a quiz, do a preview of the quiz, and then see the results on that preview, then go back to our question, edit it, and then do another preview of the quiz, which takes some time. Using the response tester, which is in the same form as the question itself is edited, you can simply click the evaluate sample response, and you'll get the feedback related to your sample response, and then you can correct the prompt until you get the correct kind of evaluation that you want. I hope that's clear. Okay, the other question that I want to quickly go over is something called Question Gen, and that's made by the people at BYCS. It's used in an organization in Bavaria which has over 1.6 million students, so it's very widely used, and it's a robust plugin. It's actually one of a set of plugins that have been made by BYCS. This is just, I guess, a representative one. This will generate questions from other resources in the course. So if you've got a PDF or an image or a page of text, you can point the question generator to that, and it will create multi-choice questions for you. In this example, from Marcus Green, actually, the nonsense nursery rhyme, The Owl and the Pussycat, we have an image of that's a resource on the course page, and we pointed the Question Gen plugin at this picture, and we said please make multi-choice questions, and it came back with the multi-choice question: what did the owl and pussycat take with them on their journey? And it's also given us one correct answer, 3 distractors, and even feedback based on the students' response. So that's a really time-saving feature, and for an existing course, you can load up the Question Gen plugin and make quizzes quite efficiently. Okay, the next plugin I want to talk about is the Poodle Mini Lesson. And this is the only Poodle plugin I'll talk about, but it's a very comprehensive plugin. It's got a lot of features, and I could talk about this for the entire presentation, but I'll just cover a few things which I think are interesting. And if you're interested in learning more, just go and have a look at our demo site or contact us. So the mini lesson is in itself kind of a quiz. You combine different item types to form a single lesson. So these are the item types that you can see here. There's a multi-choice, listening gap fill, speaking gap fill, free writing, free speaking, fluency, word shuffle. Lots of kind of language learning items that you can use to practice or assess students, that students can use to practice or that teachers can use to assess students. I'm going to share an example of a particular mini lesson called Visiting the Country, and this is based on a reading passage. So all of the 5 items in the lesson are based on the same reading passage. We'll start with the content page, and then we'll look at a passage gap fill, then we'll look at a passage reading, then we'll look at a fluency activity, and then we'll look at a free speaking activity. As I can see now that I've made a mistake in it should be visiting the country, not visiting the country. Okay, so here is our content page, and in this case we can't see the passage immediately. We have what's called an audio story, and that is a set of pictures that have been arranged into a slideshow to accompany the audio which has been generated from the text. And so this will go through and show this play through the audio as we watch the pictures, so the student first listens to the content before they see it. So it looks a little bit like this. Is that going to play for us? Okay, so it looks like the audio, the image isn't going to play, the video isn't going to play there, so let's just carry on. And the next item in the activity is called a passage gap fill, and this is where we have the reading passage with certain words blocked out, and the student listens to the audio and then fills in the gaps. It's a kind of a dictation. The audio has you can jump back and forth 5 or 10 seconds, and you can also adjust the speed of the audio as it's playing. There is a video associated with this, but it looks like that isn't going to play here for us while I'm doing the screencast. So let's just carry on and I'll show you the real thing. Oh, there's the video. Here it goes.
Ms. Lane, a school teacher, started a new project. She wanted her class to learn about life outside the city. This is your opportunity to see how people live and work, she said.
Okay, so they can see the correct answers and even the incorrect answers, and which ones they got right and which ones they got wrong. The next activity is a similar looking activity. We still see the passage, but instead of a gap fill, it's actually a read aloud activity. And there's a microphone at the bottom, which if they click that, they can read the passage aloud, and then the AI will very quickly tell us which words that were read well and which words were not. And they can try again if they want to, or listen to their audio again.
Ms. Lane, a school teacher, started a new project. She wanted her class to learn about the city.
Okay, so you can see we have some stats at the top. We can see the audio that was recorded, and let's listen to that if we want to. We can see the words which AI was able to match to the passage and the words which it could not. Then the next activity, the fourth activity in the set, is the fluency activity. This is a pronunciation specific activity. So in the previous example, if a word was right or wrong, it was just simply right or wrong. It was a binary, 1 or 0, true or false, yes or no. But in the fluency activity, a word can be partially correct. It was reasonably well spoken, but actually it could be better. And the parts of the word that are good will be marked as green. The parts of the word that are less good will be marked as orange or red. Let's see how that looks.
Ms. Lane, a school teacher, started a new project.
Example sentence.
try reading it themselves.
Elaine, a school teacher, do a new project.
Okay, and then we can see the results. So you can see some words were picked up well, they were the green words. Some were completely missed, that's the red words. And then some parts of words, like the orange part, that was not spoken so well or couldn't be picked up. And you can see the started wasn't picked up at all. It wasn't even detected. So the student could try again now if they wanted to. They can listen to their own audio again if they want to, or they can continue on to the next sentence. And then the final item in the lesson is a free speaking activity. And in this activity, unlike the previous activities where we knew what the student should say, in this case we really don't know what they're going to say. It's a free speaking activity. The question is, do you think schools should take their students to visit farms? Why do you think that? So let's see how that works when a student actually gives their answer.
Yes, I think that students should go to farms because farms are very good places to learn about animals. Yes, and it's the good thing for the student to learn about the food and the animal.
I'm deliberately making a few mistakes in that speaking
placement.
Okay, so we can see again some statistics. We can see the original text, which is the transcript of what the student said. Then we can see the corrected text, and we've highlighted the locations where the AI has changed what the student said to a better version. Beneath that we have the audio, and then we have 5-star feedback, and then the feedback has been given to the student. In this case, the feedback has come through in Japanese, so the setting I think for this user was perhaps Japanese. Okay, and how we were able to give that feedback is based on the same method that we used in the AI text question. We've got configurable prompts in the back end, which is where the student can, where the teacher can edit the activity. They can actually say that they want the feedback to be done in this way or the grade to be done in this way. So why is all that good? Well, again, it's immediate feedback for the student. The teacher doesn't need to grade it. And it's 4 skills language practice in one activity. They've got reading, listening, writing, and speaking. So it covers most of the problems that we looked at in the beginning. The one problem it doesn't seem to resolve is the difficulty of creating an activity, because there is something called faculty anxiety, or just simply the fact that it's very difficult for teachers to get in there and make quite a high quality lesson like that, because they don't have the time to do it or the knowledge to do it. And in order to resolve that, Mini Lesson has a nice feature called auto generation. So we can actually create a mini lesson either by pasting in a passage of text that we already have, or by just telling it what we want the lesson to be about, and the AI can create that. This is the AI generate page. So you can see we have a number of templates, and using those templates you can create a lesson with, we can see here 7 items or 5 items or 3 items. In some cases it's just 1 item depending on what you're trying to do. So in the example I'll give here, we're going to create a passage reading, and we're just simply going to ask it to talk about Little Red Riding Hood. So here's Little Red Riding Hood. The user's language level is Cepher A2. The keywords that we want to include in that are forest, cake, grandmother, basket, and wolf. And when we're ready, we press Save Changes. That goes into what's called a background task, where it's generated. It takes maybe 3 or 4 or 5 minutes to generate, but it will generate images and text and all of the activities that we saw in that previous visiting the country activity. It'll create a Little Red Riding Hood version of that. When it's finished, we have a nice lesson that looks like this, and that lesson is actually available. I'm going to have a look at it. It was generated just as you've seen. There was nothing in the back, no manual work on that. We just generated it and left it here on the course page for the Suzhou Moot. And here is the audio story.
Little Red Riding Hood is a story about a girl. She wears a red.
And on the next page we've got our passage gap fill.
Little Red Riding Hood is a story about a girl. She wears a red hood. Her grandmother lives. There is a cake. One.
Fill in the blanks like this. Then we have a fluency activity.
Little Red Riding Hood is a story about a girl.
Little Red Riding Hood is a stree, a boot, a girl. Sometimes takes a little bit long to generate the first one. Okay. There'll be another one if we go to the next page.
She wears a red hood and visits her grandmother.
Jump ahead. We have a read aloud section. Little Red Riding Hood is a story about a girl. She wears a hood. Her grandmother lives in forest. Okay. And finally we have a free speaking activity. So let's see how we go with the free speaking activity. I think that the wolf saying to the girl, "Hey you, let's go into your grandmother's house. I want to eat her up." And probably Little Red Riding Hood, she feels, I think she feels scary when she hears that thing that the wolf's saying to her. Okay, that's my best rendition of bad English, poor English. That will take a second or two to process, and then it should come back with some corrections on my speaking and some scores in an audio file that I can review. There it is there. Okay. In this case, the audio, the feedback is in English, but that could be configured to be in Mandarin or Japanese, whatever it might be. Okay, so that's my quick example, my quick demonstration of Poodle and the AI text question and the AI question generator question and the TinyMC generate text and TinyMC generate image plugins for Moodle. That should help you with your language teaching on Moodle. If you're interested in Poodle, just contact us at poodle.com. If you want to try the activities that you've seen here, just go to demo.poodle.cn and you'll be able to try those. Thank you.